Good morning. This is John Hampton with Rollin Television. And one of the questions I get asked all the time is where was I when all the horrible things happened on 9/11 2001? And so I thought I'd make this little video and talk about my story of my memories of 9/11. And first, before we get into the article here, let me just say the images in this video either come from Google Maps or from Wikimedia Commons. So just let you know, you can find all those images at one of those two places. So at the time that this all happened in 2001, I was living on Cross Key Road in Athens, Alabama, which is in the middle of pasture land. We had 10 acres. My granddad was growing crops like corn and beans and potatoes and stuff like that on part of it, but a big chunk of it was we let someone rent out so they could put horses on it. And so that's where I lived, is right at the corner of Cross Key Road and Poff Lane in Athens, Alabama. That's the house I lived in 2011 or 2001, rather, I should say, 2001, September 11, 2001. I was living in this house right there. That's on the corner across the Key and Poff Lane. Back when we lived there was a big old tree that's where that blue truck is now. It's actually changed quite a bit from the house that I'd known. Uh, the house itself has pretty much stayed the same, but all the surrounding land don't even look like it did when I was there. This is just enough issue there. So that day, we woke up that morning, and I was studying for a midterm in my TV production class at Calhoun. And this textbook is actually the one we used at that time, or earlier version of it, I should say. Um, and I was in there all morning long reading through the class notes, reading text, book, making sure I knew everything I knew for my midterm. So my grandfather, Robert Ward Hampton, was sitting in his bedroom watching Western movies on VHS videotape, mostly Roy Rogers movies. He loved Roy Rogers movies, taped everyone off the TV that he could get. And he would sit there after having filled up a tape and watch those tapes endlessly. So my mom, Patricia Vargas, and my stepfather, David Vargas, were stripping wallpaper off the wall in their bedroom and getting it ready to paint. They didn't have a radio on or TV. My granddad didn't have a radio or TV on in his room, and I did not have a radio or TV on in my room. We were oblivious to what was going on in the world that morning, at least until I got ready to go to school, uh, which I went to school around 11:30 Central Time. And so on the way to town, um, my mom, who was driving her Mustang, and I had the radio on a small country music radio station out of Athens that's on the AM side of the radio dial. And they, at the time, did not have a live announcer in the studio. They had it programmed to continue playing, and at the top of the hour, and they would record this twice a day, once in the morning around 8 o'clock in the morning, and once in the afternoon around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Uh, they would record a news brief with weather and everything, and they would play until the next one was recorded at the top of the hour. So we got to the top of the 12 o'clock hour, and as they were ending the news brief, the announcer said, "A plane has hit a building in New York City. More details as they become available." And my mom and I looked at each other, and I told my mom, I said, "Probably a single engine plane, probably an apartment complex. That's happened before." And she agreed that, if they wouldn't say anything else, then that's probably what it was. So we made our way on to Calhoun. And I was supposed to take my test at the Calhoun Community College's Decatur campus. That's on U.S. Highway 31, north of the Tennessee River, right in front of the Decatur Airport. And so she dropped me off there at the Fine Arts Building, and I went into the third floor to see if I could get started on my midterm. And she went on to Decatur because we didn't have a Lowe's or Home Depot in Athens at the time. And she was going to go to Decatur to pick up the paint and paintbrushes and everything to paint the bedroom. First thing I seen when I walked into the classroom was all the students gathered around the TV. And the very first image I saw on that TV was a big, tall building crashing into the ground. And this was probably around 12:15 Central Time, 1:15 Eastern Time. Of course, at this point, I was watching a tape replay of what had happened earlier that morning. The news media was replaying the video. And I looked at my professor and I said, "What's going on?" Because I didn't know if it was a live TV feed or if he pulled some old news footage of a building crashing that was going to use as part of a midterm or what. So I did ask my professor. I said, "What's going on?" And he looked at me and said, "You mean you don't know?" I said, "No, sir, I do not know." And he said, "John, sit down, please, before I talk to you." So, when someone tells you to sit down before they talk to you, the news that follows is never good. And so I sat down. The professor told me all that had happened that morning. That there had been two planes that crashed into the World Trade Center. Both World Trade Center 1 and Trade Center 2 had just crashed to the ground after burning for 2 or 3 hours. And there were multiple casualties, meaning a lot of people were killed there. Another plane had hit the Pentagon, there were people killed there. And then a fourth plane had crashed into Pennsylvania. And they believe that plane had been hijacked by terrorists as well, but somehow or another, it's the spark. I told the professor, I said, "We're at war." He said, "Yes, we are." I said, uh, "Well, are we going to continue having our test, or we need to break for classes?" I'm letting you know the rest of school has already decided we're closed until Tuesday. He said, "When your ride gets back, just make sure you're getting there with your ride as quickly as possible and get off campus." So, my mom, strangely enough, was turning onto the Beltline in Decatur. That's the road that takes you to your Lowe's and Home Depot and all that stuff. So on the south end of Decatur, it's also Alabama State Highway 67. And she heard about this because she had flipped the radio over to WDRM FM 102.1, and they were simulcasting the CNN feed of what was happening that day. And she heard what was going on, and she flipped a U-turn right in the middle of the belt line. She said, "Normally in 6-lane road like the belt line that's divided, you're not going to be able to take a U-turn, or at least you might get hit, or you might have to deal with a lot of traffic." But she said, "I was able to do that U-turn on the belt line at Central Avenue, Central Parkway traffic light without anybody blocking me whatsoever." Which is that's that traffic light right there that I'm showing on the screen. And she said, "As soon as I heard that, I came back towards Calhoun to pick you up." So by the time I got out there, good, she was already on her way to me. And I have to say, I was kind of worried when I got in the car. I drove up. I knew. She said, "That's the same thing I know." I said, "What? This is a dangerous time." She said, "I'm not so sure that this is the end of time right here." I said, "I'm not going to argue with you." I said, "It could very well be." Of course, we now know that was not the end of time. That uh, this was just a very, very, very bad day for our country. And uh, I'd always said as a kid growing up, I was a student of history, and I always said that after Pearl Harbor, 1941, I didn't think no one would ever be dumb enough to attack America on their own soil again. 9/11 proved that I was wrong. That, we are still a vulnerable country. That people can still come in and attack us and everything. But this country was founded in 1776 by patriots like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and we've suffered through quite a lot of bad things over the years. We survived this attack on our country that happened in 2001. We've survived damaging tornadoes, hurricanes, wars, other attacks on our country. We've survived a pandemic. We're resilient here in the United States of America. No matter what comes our way, we can get through it together. And we just got to remember that. As long as we're united together, there's nothing that can come against our United States that we as Americans cannot overcome. We just got to remain together, remain vigilant, support our great country and our military and our first responders and our police officers and our teachers and those who work in the government, the trash collectors, and the people who work on the roads, and the people who work in utilities. There's people who are out there every day working to keep our country going, and we need to make sure that if we see one of them out there, that we salute them and thank them for their work. As America is the greatest country on earth, and we will continue to be the greatest country on earth as long as we continue doing what made us great. This is John Hampton for Ryland Television. Thanks for listening, and God bless.